Our wedding night.
Did you ever manage to find the marriage license?
In 1947, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby were Hollywood's golden duo, lighting up the screen with their legendary road movies. Their on-screen camaraderie was the stuff of movie magic, but behind the scenes, the story was anything but friendly. While audiences saw two best pals on wild adventures, the reality was a simmering rivalry that eventually boiled over into outright animosity. Crosby once called Hope a talentless hack, avoided his infamous roasts, and even forbade their wives from socializing. Now, decades later, the truth is emerging about how these comedy icons went from partners to bitter enemies, and the shocking betrayal that finally tore them apart. Bob Hope, born Leslie Towns Hope on May 29, 1903, in the London suburb of Eltham, started life far removed from the glitz of Hollywood. His father, William, was a stonemason from Somerset, while his mother, Avis, was a light opera singer from Wales. The family struggled financially, and life in England was tough. In 1907, William decided to take a gamble on a better life, leaving for America ahead of his family. Settling in Cleveland, Ohio, where his brothers were already working as plumbers and steamfitters, William eventually sent for Avis and their 6 sons. The family traveled in third class aboard the SS Philadelphia, arriving at Ellis Island on March 30th, 1908. The Hopes' new life in Cleveland wasn't much easier. They lived in a modest home near Doan's Corners and often took in boarders to make ends meet. Despite the hardships, Avis never stopped nurturing her children's talents. She encouraged young Bob to sing and perform, recognizing his natural ability to entertain. Even when money was scarce, she found ways to let him explore his gifts. It was Avis who first helped Bob discover his love for the spotlight. Bob's first taste of performing came at age 10, when he won a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest at Luna Park in Cleveland. The thrill of being on stage was intoxicating, but at the time, his sights were set on a different dream: boxing. In 1919, under the name Packy East, a nod to boxer Packy McFarland, he entered the Ohio Novice Boxing Championships. He won 3 fights before losing in the finals, later joking that he spent more time on the canvas than Picasso. To support his family, Bob took any job he could find. He sold newspapers, worked as a soda jerk, sold shoes, and even tried hustling pool. These odd jobs exposed him to a wide array of personalities, each providing inspiration for his future comedy. By the 1920s, Bob began to take entertainment more seriously. He trained as a dancer with professionals like King Rastus Brown and Johnny Root, which helped him land small vaudeville gigs. His first performing partner was Mildred Rosequist, but when her mother refused to let her travel, he teamed up with Lloyd Durbin and later George Byrne. His early shows were in modest venues like Cleveland's Bandbox Theater, but his talent quickly propelled him to bigger stages. By 1931, he had reached the Palace Theater in New York City, a pinnacle for vaudeville performers. Unlike many comedians of his time who stuck to rigid, rehearsed routines, Hope developed a more natural style. He thrived on interacting with the audience, delivering quick-witted one-liners mixed with dance. This blend of humor and performance set him apart and paved his way to radio, where he quickly became a national sensation. Hope's early radio gigs included hosting The Intimate Review in 1935 and The Atlantic Family from 1935 to 1936. These shows built his reputation, but it was the Pepsodent Show starring Bob Hope that truly launched him into stardom. The show was an instant hit, and by the early 1940s, it was the #1 radio show in America, remaining in the top 5 for years. For more than a decade, millions of listeners tuned in every week, eagerly awaiting what Bob Hope would say next. His comedy was unlike anything else on the airwaves. While most radio stars at the time hid behind fictional characters, Hope made himself the punchline. He poked fun at real events and everyday life, always keeping his material fresh and timely. His secret? He instructed his writers to comb through the newspapers, transforming headlines into quick-witted jokes. They crafted hundreds of jokes each week, but only the sharpest made the cut. This relentless pursuit of perfection set the stage for the late-night talk show monologues that would dominate television decades later. Hope's unique style and undeniable talent did not go unnoticed. He earned 3 prestigious Peabody Awards, one of the highest honors in broadcasting. His first win came in 1944, recognizing his tireless efforts to boost morale during World War II. The Peabody Committee highlighted his impact, stating that the joy he brought to the troops could never truly be measured. Hope later received more Peabody Awards for his groundbreaking work in both radio and television. At its peak, The Pepsodent Show wasn't just the top radio program. It was a cultural phenomenon. From 1942 to 1944, it held the #1 spot, proving that comedy could be more than mere entertainment. It could unite people and provide comfort during the darkest of times. But Bob Hope's journey to Hollywood stardom was anything but smooth. His first film role came in 1934 with Going Spanish, a short film he later joked was so terrible it should be used as punishment. This kind of humor became Hope's signature: sharp, self-deprecating, and always delivered with perfect timing. His big break arrived with The Big Broadcast of 1938, a musical comedy that introduced the world to Thanks for the Memory. Hope performed the song alongside Shirley Ross, and it became an instant classic. The song's blend of sentimentality and wit, combined with its unforgettable melody, made it a perfect fit for Hope's charming yet comedic persona. By the late 1930s, Hope had become a major star on the radio, but Hollywood presented new challenges. His film roles capitalized on his natural comedic style, often casting him as the fast-talking, overconfident guy who inevitably found himself in ridiculous situations. The Cat and the Canary, 1939, showcased this perfectly, blending horror with comedy as Hope played a nervous hero stuck in a haunted house. The film's balance of suspense and humor struck a chord with audiences, solidifying Hope's place in Hollywood. Then came Road to Singapore in 1940, the start of a legendary franchise. This was the first of the Road to films, a series that teamed Hope with Bing Crosby and Dorothy Lamour. The movies were a delightful mix of music, adventure, and non-stop comedy. Hope and Crosby shared incredible on-screen chemistry, Crosby as the smooth talker and Hope as the wise-cracking coward, with Lamour as the woman both men adored. The magic of these films lay in their spontaneity. Much of the humor wasn't scripted. Hope and Crosby improvised constantly, tossing jokes back and forth and even breaking the fourth wall. Their rapid-fire banter gave the movies an infectious energy that audiences couldn't resist. The Road to series ran for over 2 decades, with Road to Morocco, 1942, standing out as one of the most beloved entries. The formula was simple, but it never grew old. It was clear to anyone watching that Hope and Crosby weren't just acting, they were genuinely having fun. The authenticity of their humor made the films timeless. Beyond the Road to films, Hope proved he could carry a movie on his own. He had a knack for parody, taking classic film genres and spinning them into comedic gold. The Paleface, 1948, is a prime example. In it, Hope played a cowardly dentist who accidentally becomes a Western hero. The very idea of Hope as a gunslinger was absurd, and that was exactly what made it so hilarious. He never tried to play the tough guy. Instead, he excelled as the everyman who stumbled his way through danger, relying on quick thinking and sheer luck to survive. Bob Hope's love for parody shone through in films like My Favorite Brunette, 1947, where he hilariously skewered classic detective tropes. Earlier in The Ghost Breakers, 1940, Hope mixed horror with humor, playing a man who stumbles into a haunted mansion and relies not on muscle but on wit to survive. He wasn't the action hero who punched his way out of trouble. He charmed, joked, and talked his way out. It was this relatable everyman quality that set him apart from the traditional leading men of his era. But beyond Hollywood glitz, Bob Hope found his true calling on May 6, 1941. That night, at March Field in California, he performed his NBC radio show live for an audience of servicemen. It was his first USO tour, and neither he nor the soldiers in attendance could have known they were witnessing the start of something monumental. The USO itself was only a few months old, but Hope's performance brought it instant credibility. Soldiers packed the venue, eager to see the Hollywood star who had come not for a film premiere or a gala, but for them. Hope delivered a show that mixed sharp comedy with a bit of music. But it wasn't just the jokes that hit home. It was his approach. He didn't offer a polished, rehearsed theater act. Instead, he tailored his humor to the soldiers' experiences, riffing on the quirks of military life, the harshness of base conditions, and the universal longing for home. His performance felt personal, and the soldiers responded with roaring laughter. In that moment, Hope realized he had found an audience that needed him more than any glitzy Hollywood crowd ever could. From that day forward, Hope's career took on a new dimension. Over the next year and a half, he crisscrossed the United States, performing at military bases and training camps. When World War II escalated, he didn't hesitate to take his act overseas. Between 1941 and 1945, he toured Europe and the Pacific, often venturing dangerously close to combat zones. His 1944 South Pacific tour was legendary. 30,000 miles in just 2 months, with stops in Hawaii, New Guinea, and Australia. He performed more than 150 shows under challenging conditions, with makeshift stages and unreliable equipment. But none of that mattered to him. The soldiers did. Hope's tours were not without risk. German forces monitored his movements, aware of his impact on American morale. Some towns he visited were bombed shortly after his performances. Still, Hope refused to let the danger stop him. Instead, he turned it into part of his act. If a bomb dropped nearby, he joked about it. If the conditions were rough, he made fun of himself for being there. It was this fearless humor that endeared him to the troops. He wasn't just there to perform, he was there to connect. His performances were more than just shows, they were lifelines. He brought along singers, musicians, and dancers to make the experiences feel like a slice of home. Each performance was unique, with jokes tailored to fit the location, the audience, and the situation. The soldiers didn't see a Hollywood star. They saw someone who understood them, who genuinely cared. Over time, Hope became a symbol of comfort and resilience, a beacon of light in the darkest of times. During the Korean War, Hope's dedication continued. He performed in freezing temperatures, sometimes mere miles from active battle zones. In Vietnam, even as public opinion on the war grew increasingly divided, he never wavered in his support for the troops. His Vietnam tours were some of his grandest, featuring Hollywood stars like Anne Margaret and Raquel Welch. The shows were meticulously planned to avoid enemy attacks, with stages set up in varying locations to keep everyone safe. For many soldiers, These performances were once-in-a-lifetime experiences, offering joy and hope amid the harsh realities of war. Hope's commitment never waned. Even in 1990, at 87 years old, he traveled to Saudi Arabia during Operation Desert Shield. By then, he had been performing for troops for nearly 5 decades, completing 57 USO tours across multiple wars and continents. His dedication earned him a title that meant more to him than any award. When Congress named him an honorary veteran in 1997, it was the ultimate acknowledgement of his lifelong service. Bob Hope's transition to television in 1947 was a pivotal moment not only for his career, but also for the evolution of entertainment itself. He made his first appearance on the small screen as the host of the first commercial broadcast on Los Angeles' KTLA. However, his real television breakthrough came on April 9, 1950, with NBC's Star-Spangled Review. This variety show brought Hope's signature sharp monologues, comedy sketches, and musical performances to living rooms across America. It was a seamless transition from radio, where he had already amassed a loyal audience, and it marked the beginning of his enduring partnership with NBC. Unlike many of his peers, Hope opted not to commit to a weekly television series. Instead, he focused on producing television specials, a strategic move that allowed him to maintain the high quality of his productions while continuing his film work and USO tours. This flexibility kept his material fresh and relevant, a crucial factor in his lasting success. In 1950, he cemented his place on television by signing a long-term contract with NBC, ensuring his presence on the air for decades to come. While many radio stars struggled to adapt to the visual demands of television, Hope thrived. His comedic timing, sharp delivery, and natural charm translated perfectly to the screen, making him one of the most recognized faces in American entertainment. Hope's Christmas specials became a cherished tradition. Although he had been performing for U.S. troops since World War II in 1954, he began filming these performances for television. The specials showcased him traveling worldwide to bring laughter to soldiers stationed far from home, often accompanied by major stars like Anne Margaret, Raquel Welch, and even astronaut Neil Armstrong. These broadcasts were more than just holiday entertainment. They were powerful moments of connection and comfort for service members. One of the most iconic specials aired in January 1970, featuring his Vietnam Christmas show. It drew an astounding 64% of the television audience, the highest rating ever for an entertainment special at the time. For soldiers in the thick of a controversial war, Hope's visits were a lifeline to normalcy and a reminder of home. Hope's television specials followed a format that would later influence countless variety shows and late-night talk shows. His sharp, topical monologues became the blueprint for opening segments, blending humor with current events. He filled his specials with celebrity guests, music, and comedy skits, creating a lively, engaging atmosphere. His ability to connect with audiences, whether in a theater or on a makeshift stage in a war zone, made him a beloved figure. From 1963 to 1967, Hope expanded his television repertoire by hosting Bob Hope Presents the Chrysler Theater, an anthology series that mixed dramatic plays with variety-style episodes. This project showcased his versatility not only as a performer, but also as a producer. Between 1950 and 1996, Bob Hope hosted over 300 television specials, crafting a legacy that shaped American entertainment. His influence can still be seen in modern television, from the variety format of shows like Saturday Night Live to the topical humor of late-night hosts such as Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert. Hope's blend of humor, celebrity collaboration, and cultural commentary set a standard that would be emulated for generations. But while Hope's public persona was polished and his professional achievements celebrated, his personal life was filled with contradictions and mystery. His first marriage to Grace Louise Troxell remains a puzzle. The couple married on January 25, 1933, in Erie, Pennsylvania, while performing together in vaudeville. However, by November 1934, the marriage had ended. Strangely, Hope later denied the marriage had ever taken place, with his publicists even suggesting that the marriage license was a clerical error. Yet, court records confirmed the union, revealing a curious discrepancy between Hope's public narrative and the legal truth. Despite his denial, Hope quietly provided financial support to Troxell for the rest of her life. This quiet arrangement painted a complex picture of a man whose private actions did not always align with his public statements. Even more curious was the timeline of Hope's relationship with his second wife, Dolores Reed. In mid-1933, while still legally married to Troxell, Hope began an affair with Reed, a Ziegfeld performer who had just joined his vaudeville troupe. Hope later asserted that he married Reed in February 1934, months before his divorce from Troxell was finalized. This timeline raises serious questions. Was Hope technically a bigamist, or had he fabricated the details of his marriage to Reed? There is no official marriage certificate or wedding photos to substantiate the claim. Some biographers, like Richard Zoglin, have even questioned whether their marriage was legally recognized. However, if the marriage was not legitimate, Dolores Reed never seemed to mind. She once remarked that if their marriage hadn't been a good one, she simply wouldn't have stayed. Whatever the truth, the couple remained together for nearly 70 years until his death in 2003. Together, they built a family by adopting 4 children: Linda, Anthony, Kelly, and Eleonora, from an orphanage in Evanston, Illinois. While Hope's career took him around the world, often for long stretches, Reed stayed behind, raising their children and keeping their home life as stable as possible. The family maintained a strong public image, portraying a picture of unity and devotion, even as Hope's private life told a different story. Behind the scenes, Hope was far from the faithful Catholic husband he presented to the world. His charm and influence allowed him to hide countless affairs with young actresses and showgirls, some fleeting and others stretching on for years. Hollywood insiders knew, but few dared to speak out, except for one. In 1949, Hope's carefully crafted image was nearly shattered when he met Barbara Payton, a beautiful and ambitious rising star in Hollywood. Hope was immediately smitten and pursued her with his characteristic persistence. He set her up in a lavish apartment and showered her with gifts. But Payton wanted more than just Hope's affection. She wanted stability, financial support, and perhaps even a public acknowledgement of their relationship. Hope, however, had no intention of giving up his marriage or risking his career. When she pressed, he ended the affair, offering a financial settlement to keep her quiet. For years, the story remained buried. Hope moved on, his team continuing to protect his image and silence rumors. But in 1956, a desperate and struggling Payton broke her silence. Her career had crumbled, and she found herself spiraling into poverty and addiction. She sold her story to Confidential magazine, detailing her affair with Hope and painting him as cold, controlling, and ruthless. The public was shocked. This was not the family-friendly comedian they thought they knew. Hope's reaction was calculated silence. He knew that responding to the scandal would only fan the flames. His public relations team sprang into action, managing the fallout with expert precision. The story faded from public memory, and Hope's career remained largely unscathed. Unfortunately, Payton was not as lucky. Her career never recovered, and her life continued on a tragic path until her death in 1967. She became a cautionary tale of what happened to those who crossed powerful men in Hollywood. Hope's affair with Peyton was not an isolated incident. His long-term relationship with actress Marilyn Maxwell was an open secret in Hollywood. His 30-year affair with Miss World winner Rosemary Franklin was similarly well known among industry insiders. Women lined up outside his hotel rooms during tours, hopeful actresses, models, beauty queens, all vying for his attention. Reed, for her part, seemed to accept her husband's indiscretions. In a rare interview in 1978, she admitted that she doubted Hope had ever been 100% true blue. But she chose to stay by his side regardless. Perhaps it was her Catholic faith that kept her committed to the marriage. Or maybe it was a pragmatic decision. Whatever the reason, she maintained her role as Hope's steadfast partner. And despite his affairs, he never allowed another woman to take her place. Hope's professional relationship with Bing Crosby, his co-star in the iconic Road to Movies, was similarly complicated. When Paramount Pictures began casting for Road to Singapore, the first of their legendary series, Hope wasn't even the first choice. The script had been turned down by more established duos like Fred MacMurray and Jack Oakie, as well as George Burns and Gracie Allen. When the studio finally landed on Hope and Crosby, there were concerns about their chemistry. To hedge their bets, they cast Dorothy Lamour as the female lead. On screen, Hope and Crosby had a dynamic that audiences adored. They improvised, cracked jokes, and broke the fourth wall, giving the films a fresh and spontaneous feel. Their comedic timing was perfect, and their banter seemed so natural that it was hard to believe they weren't best friends off camera. The truth, however, was far different. Crosby saw Hope as a talentless hack. While Hope thrived in social situations and loved mingling with cast and crew, Crosby preferred solitude. He often sat alone on set, reading horse race results, while Hope entertained everyone around him. Their wives never socialized, and outside of work, the two men led completely separate lives. Another issue was money. It was a real sticking point. At the start of their Road to Movie series, Crosby was the bigger star, which meant a bigger paycheck. He earned nearly double what Hope did, and while Hope was all laughs on screen, behind the scenes, he wasn't thrilled. By 1947, Hope had renegotiated his contract, leveling the playing field and earning as much as Crosby. Still, the competition between them never truly faded. Their rivalry wasn't just an act, it was woven into their comedy. In Road to Bali, 1952, Hope broke the fourth wall, turning to the audience and quipping, "He's going to sing, folks. Now's the time to go out for popcorn." Their public personas thrived on this back-and-forth banter. Hope once joked, "There's nothing I wouldn't do for Bing, and there's nothing he wouldn't do for me. And that's how we go through life, doing nothing for each other." Their humor masked any real tension, creating an illusion of inseparable friendship, even if the reality was quite different. As time went on, both comedy legends aged, but Hope never truly left the spotlight. At 94, he attended the funeral of his old friend Jimmy Stewart, appearing frail and a shadow of his former self. Just a year later, he stood on stage at the 50th anniversary of the Primetime Emmy Awards, alongside other Hollywood icons like Milton Berle and Sid Caesar. Despite his declining health, his connection to the industry he loved remained unbroken. In 1999, the Library of Congress honored him with the opening of the Bob Hope Gallery of American Entertainment, showcasing two major exhibitions about his life and career. The following year, at 97, he made one of his last public appearances at the Hope Classic Golf Tournament. Hugging Swedish golfer Jesper Parnevik, Hope still showcased a hint of the warmth that had endeared him to millions. As the years caught up to him, Hope faced health challenges. He was hospitalized for pneumonia, and by May 29, 2003, he reached the extraordinary milestone of his 100th birthday. Los Angeles honored him by renaming the intersection of Hollywood and Vine as Bob Hope Square. 35 states declared it Bob Hope Day. Even then, his wit stayed sharp. When asked about his age, he quipped, "I'm so old, they've canceled my blood type." Despite frailty, Hope remained in relatively good health throughout his final years. On the morning of July 27, 2003, at his home in Toluca Lake, California, Bob Hope passed away. He was 2 months past his 100th birthday. Even in his final moments, his sense of humor shined through. When his wife Dolores asked where he wanted to be buried, he simply replied, "Surprise me." Hope's remains were initially placed in a mausoleum vault at San Fernando Mission Cemetery. Later, they were moved to the Bob Hope Memorial Garden, built next to the cemetery. Dolores, his devoted wife, lived another 8 years, passing away at the age of 102. The world mourned, and cartoonists paid tribute in the best way they knew, through humor. Many depicted Bing Crosby, who had died in 1977, welcoming Hope to heaven with a smile and a wave. It was a fitting farewell for a man whose legacy was built on laughter, leaving behind a timeless echo of joy.